Hi everyone, welcome to the Howdy Partner Show. I'm Kruthi, a Partner Solutions Architect from Amazon Web Services. With me, I have Nneoma. Nneoma, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, Kruthi, thank you so much. My name is Nneoma Okoroafor. I'm also a partner solutions architect at AWS. And what I do is to help AWS partners with their technical validations and also to help them on their workloads in AI, ML, and generative AI.
Awesome. Thanks, Nneoma. So, Nneoma, what is the Howdy Partner Show?
Well, the Howdy Partner Show is a weekly tweet series where we kind of highlight some of our partners who have done something to differentiate themselves. Example is they built like really innovative solutions that they want people to come kind of see and understand how it works. And today we have one of those partners with us. Pretty, do you want to?
Uh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so today we have with us Mechanized AI, and we have the CEO, Charles, and we also have the Chief AI Officer, Aditya, on stage. Thank you so much, Aditya and Charles, for being with us here today. Really appreciate your time, and we are really excited to see what you show us today. So, yeah, could
Yeah,
I
well,
get a quick introduction?
we're really excited to be here. Obviously, it's hard to get on this Howdy Partner show. I mean, it's like an 8 month timeline, so we're really excited to finally make it. Well, my name is Charles Wright. I'm the CEO of Mechanized AI. A little bit about myself. Obviously, I've been in tech industry a number of years. This is my second startup. Our last startup was, an APM partner with Amazon as well. So we built a really strong relationship with AWS over 20 years ago. I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't want to even say 20. It sounds like a long time. But we're back. We're glad to be back. As in the startup community with Amazon and doing something really we feel is extremely differentiated. And I'm joined by Aditya. And Aditya, if you want to go ahead and make a intro, appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to. Quick intro on me. Been in AI for quite a long time, really, even before MLOps was a thing, right? We spent years at multiple clients like Ford, BP, Shell, Taco Bell, Apple, really rebuilding the wheel every time for MLOps best practices. So that really spurred us on to bring up mechanized AI and all-in-one MLOps platform, and then build subsequent generative AI last mile solutions like Modernize, like we're going to show you guys here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction. And could you give a brief background of what Mechanized is and what solutions you'd be showing us today?
Yeah, I'll tackle it first, and then I'll have Aditya add some more color. But essentially, what we just when me and Aditya first met, which is about 4 years ago, our as he touched on it a little bit, our goal was to build a solution that could scale at every single client, and it was kind of a build once solution that we would produce and deliver multiple times, right? And that's the baseline of how we built all our technology. So as Aditya mentioned, we built a pretty scalable ML ops, large language model operations, monitoring, dashboarding, validation, model validation. The beauty of everything I'm talking about is Kruthi has seen it, and she has actually witnesses, which is why we're actually on this show today. And so once we build that foundational platform, then we started telling our clients all the great things they can build on it. And then we partnered with one client, NTT Data, and that led to the genesis of the modernized solution that we're going to demonstrate for you today, which actually we think is not only differentiated, but is significantly forward thinking on how you look at application modernization going into the future. So we're going to touch on a lot of those topics specifically, but that's kind of the genesis and the mindset of how we got here today. It started at lunch at California Pizza Kitchen that we had, and it turned into a probably a long-term friendship that's going to last way past this startup. So Aditya, I'll turn it over to you if you want to add more color from a technical perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Like Charles was saying, right? The end-to-end workflow for AI is cumbersome, right? You have to engage with data best practices, ML best practices, deployment best practices, right? So our mechanized solution essentially engages with that entire workflow in one place, right? Leveraging the top services and top tools from AWS so that businesses, rather than focusing on the nitty gritty 24/7, a lot of that can be automated with best practices out of the gate. So you can focus on driving the business value that you need to rather than just, hey, like this pipeline, we needed to scale to 100 terabytes a month, right? That is very complex, hard to hire for, and you need to spend a lot of time engaging with that versus our system provides all that guidance and setup for you, right? Whether it be in classic ML and DL or generative AI and LLMs by providing the LLM ops infrastructure and ML ops infrastructure.
Yeah, so Kruthi, let me add to that because I thought Aditya did a great job in summarizing the platform. So we want to get the message out and make it really clear that our solution is 100% AI. It's not a wrapper, it's not an API call. There are levels and stages to the solution. So when he's talking about all the back end that work that was already done, that's what makes Modernize capability and product so powerful is that it sits on top of all that automation and infrastructure. It sits on top of all those large language models and all of the data pipelining that exists. So it's essentially like we built a foundation, plumbing, electrical, and then we just built a beautiful solution on top of it that leverages all of that muscle that lives in the platform. So that's really important. So today I know we're going to focus on MyModernize, but before we get a bunch of emails from ML ops companies and large language ops companies, we already have it. It's baked into the solution. This is an extremely complex automation platform, and all of that is already there. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that because we get an email at least 3 times a week telling us how we can leverage ML ops to improve our solution, and I'm like, it's in there. It's in there every time, you know. So I want to make sure everybody hears that loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Charles and Aditya, for the overview of what you'll be showing us today and what your product is capable of. So I just want to understand, you did mention that you've integrated with some services on AWS. Could you maybe elaborate on what services? I don't know if you'll be covering this later, Aditya. If you want to take it on later, that's cool as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to cover that now, right?
Okay.
We decided to kind of start with AWS because Amazon's obviously a leader in the ML and AI space, and they have been like that for about, 10 plus years, right? So we engaged with really all of the AI, ML, and data related services and security related services that you would need, like key management service, Bedrock, SageMaker, and a lot of their MLOps capabilities, Glue, Lambda, Kinesis, EMR, if I haven't mentioned that already, and Lake Formation and S3 to really create that foundational ML structure and scalability and security that enabled us to wrap everything in a nice tight bow in one place so that and expose it in such a way that business leaders and technical teams can find it easy to use.
Awesome.
Yeah, Kruthi, I'll piggyback on that. When me and Aditya decided to, build this solution together, there's a bunch of other clouds out there. We won't say their names on this call, and I asked him, straight up. I said, "Look, man, we're going to build this one time. Where do we build it? If we build it one time, where do we build it?" And he said we're not building it anywhere else other than Amazon because they have all the capabilities we need that is going to make our solution pretty robust. So that was really his call, and we leaned into it. And of course, I deferred to his experience. He used some other cloud platforms on other projects we delivered, and he had a bad experience. So we were really excited. You know, obviously we're excited that we're leveraging Amazon, but that was a conscious choice to do it. And to be honest, it was not about market share. It wasn't about sales. It was about capabilities, right? At the end of the day, that's all we cared about. How do we give a really good product to our clients? Where can we trust the product to live? And then he made the call, and those are the questions I asked, and that's why we're here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that information. Do we want to get into what the modernized solution is and show our audience how they can use the solution and how to get in touch with you if they want to use the solution moving forward?
Sure. So I think we have some slides. Aditya, do you want to
Okay.
get them on the main stage? So, as we mentioned, obviously we're in the AWS Activate program as well as the NVIDIA Inception program. Um, but as we mentioned, Modernize sits on top of our mechanized AI solution, and let's go through what that looks like. Uh, well, that's what we look like, but yeah. So what one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest problems, obviously, in the whole modernization space, just to give you some grasp of how big this problem is. um, we met with a McKinsey principal last week, and he told us that this is a $3 trillion problem annually, right? So when we built this beautiful platform that we love to talk about, um, when we built this capability on top of it, we realized how significant this problem was from not only a support perspective, but a time perspective and support perspective. So let's talk about what that means. Um, it takes about it, for instance, as I mentioned, the trillions of dollars to support these apps, but many companies are moving off of these applications, right? And the time it takes to move off these applications is 3 to 5 years. It's a significantly heavily manual process. That if you want to go to that manual process versus automated process effort, this is kind of how it usually used to work, right? You have people, you have the financials, you have time. It takes 3 to 5 years to modernize applications, big ones. I'm talking about in the millions of lines of code. And it's just not the way things are being done is inefficient, right? And so the way we actually designed it is an entire automated AI enabled process, which significantly reduces the time to complete these projects. Now, some of the challenges, and I'll mention it on this call, is really about people and process, right? So people and process, and of course we talk about technology. That's really where the painstaking happens, because people going forward want to use the old method and inject AI into the current human process. And what we're trying to get them to understand and disrupt the market is saying we need to rethink the process, right? Now that we have better tools, we're not going to do the same thing that we used to do, right? And I use the example of a tire iron, right? If you get a tire changed at a tire shop, they don't bring out the iron and do it manually. They bring out the machine and they remove your tire, so you get it really faster. So what we've done with our technology is we've streamlined all of that process that takes years to complete. We've streamlined all the process that takes on the implementation side. And to be honest, it's a very complex problem, but using the AI methodology is a significantly faster, more efficient way to do it. Aditya, are you there?
I think Aditya dropped.
That's okay. He always drops when
Yeah.
I'm doing my best work. I think, it's I don't know if it's intimidating or anything, but hopefully he gets his connection back. He'll get his connection back.
Yeah.
But
So,
while he's gone, that's literally the thought process, right? It's there's a saying, I think it says, what is it, culture trump strategy, right? I think everyone's heard that in leadership. In this case, um, we have to turn the tables on culture and provide a strategy that's going to change the way this process is done, because our natural instinctual way is to do it the way we always known how to do it. But with the dawn of generative AI, we have to think about it differently, and that starts everywhere, leadership, all the way down to the operators who are on the ground doing the work. So, but anyway, Aditya is back, thankfully. Aditya, thank you for giving that spur of the moment drop. Um,
Yeah.
so, Kruthi, any other questions about that or any follow ups?
Yeah, so you did talk about the modernization market, and just want to understand how much of this legacy code actually exists there, and what is the opportunity for customers who actually use your solution.
Yeah, so it's true. Honestly, it's hundreds of trillions of lines of code. It's every day. I always tell people every day your code ages and eventually becomes legacy. So we will never run out of code per se. But understanding the addressable market is in the trillions and trillions of lines of code, right? You're talking legacy banking applications. You're talking legacy healthcare applications. There's legacy applications every single place. And we ran into a client scenario where I believe they had COBOL on Windows. Like that was just I never even. I mean, I'd be honest. I've heard of a lot of old stuff, but that was not only was that old, it was pretty strange actually. But yeah, these code these applications are pretty ancient, and we feel like we'll never get to solving the solution if we don't think differently and we don't use the proper technology, right? And so that's why we're so excited about it, is because every conversation, every person we talk to, every partner we talk to, as soon as you mention legacy code, the room changes, right? We could be having a nice lunch and it's say we mentioned legacy code and everybody's hand in the room goes up. Like it's a problem in every industry, every business. And we have a way to rebuild these applications faster, more efficiently. And the work stream, as I mentioned, Kruthi, is going to change, right? We have to be, let's be honest, right? We have to be honest with the people that work here. We have to be honest with the people and our clients. You can't do things the old way and try to put AI in there. It will fail. And I tell people that it's because you can't have it your way. This is not Burger King, right? So this is, you have to rethink the business and you have to rethink the outcome. And then you think about speed, right? So, Aditya, if you want to bring up that speed slide, I'd like to drain that a little bit before we go into the demo. And so what I mean by speed is, I think, do we have a case study or no case study on this one? All right. Well, these are more generic case studies, but let's talk. So I'll give you an example of one client, right? So a client had a scenario where they had 300,000 approximately lines of code, and they were scoping this project, and the project would take about 15 full-time people, almost 30,000 man hours to do the work needed on just the assessment part. Not even, remember, there's multi stages in the application journey. You have to do your assessment, then you have to do your architecting and implementation. So when we look at just the implementation phase, it would take 18 months to assess the legacy application so you can prepare it for the outcome, or future proofing or future state. So when we did it, we did the same example with our automation solution using AI. It took out, we essentially the outputs they would have generated in 18 months, we generated in less than 2 weeks. Okay, that is a significant differentiation, right? Matter of fact, the data is so that what I would say comprehensive that teams weren't even ready for that kind of information. They were like, wow. They were like, whoa, wait a minute. When we did this manually, it took us 18 months and we probably had 1/3 of the data, right? And I was like, yeah, because we actually have multiple large language models layered on top of each other, doing multi assessments of the data. So it's not just some simple process, some simple call, some simple API. We're literally bringing multi-tiered LLM capability to the table day one. And that is, I hate to say it, it's just more comprehensive than 3 to 4 people working in a room or 11 people working in a room for 15 months. There's no technology fatigue. There's no cutting corners. There's no shortcuts. All of this is done through a generative AI. So there's, it's just going to be, I would say it's more information than they'd ever seen. And to be honest, when they said that, they were not happy at first, but then I had to sit down and explain to them that, do you want to make just important decisions with less or more information? And then their mindset shifted. So like as I mentioned, it's a mindset, right? Nobody on this call, nobody listening, nobody on this host panel wants to make any decision with less information. And so we have to accustom our clients to understand that it's going to be significant amount of data points, but we want you to make the most informed decision and how to build this application from a secure, re-architected position that's going to be more, powerful for your end user community in the future, and remove all of the old, security flaws, remove all the issues associated with the performance of the old app. So we, like I said, we will provide you with the more than what you need, but we feel comfortable because our reputation is around providing solutions that are going to be enterprise quality.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning the, mental model, like the mindset thing changing. We know that whenever we talk about modernization or change within an organization, there are multiple levels of, constraints and, people who are not comfortable with that change. So how would you say internally an organization should approach modernization, the conversation itself, before involving mechanized AI? How do they get everyone to be on the same, on the same page to say, okay, we want to use, approach mechanized AI to help us modernize our applications?
Yeah, I think that honestly, Nneoma, it's something that it's a leadership question, right? You're asking me about how do we prep leadership. I have a motto that I just made up today. It's my new motto. It's middle management where great with bad ideas grow to thrive, right? So it really has to be a top down solution, right? We have to teach people. I remember when DevOps came around. I don't know if you guys might be a little bit too young for DevOps. Maybe I'm joking, but I'm a little old man. So I remember when DevOps came out, and every infrastructure person in America had a revolt in the streets. Right? There's no way we're going to move to this DevOps model. We want to make VMs one by one, right? And it was an op model change. Everything had to change because the operational efficiencies you got from DevOps was significant. It's the same thing with AI. You can't have AI the way you want AI. You have to take AI as it is, and it's going to get better. It's not in its final stages. It's in its infancy. But as a leader, that's the mindset you have to have. Okay, we're going to modernize it. First of all, you start off with the idea. Okay, how are we going to modernize? Well, what are we going to modernize to? Right? Are we going from an old Java to a modern Python? Are we going to move from a .NET to a React front end? All those things are just choices the business needs to make. Once those choices are made and you understand what, and theoretically or from a visionary perspective, what you want the future app to look like, that's when you come to us and say, or you come to us and our partners. We have multiple partners, global SIs that we work with that we will also bring to the table. And we will take, our goal is to facilitate a faster but more efficient way of moving to it. So we talk about, and you'll see in one of our slides, I think eventually, or it's on our website now if you want to take a look. Why Copilot when you can autopilot, right? And that's the question, right? Our solution is a kind of autopilot for transformation, right? It takes away a lot of the manual guesswork, all the manual conversations around how things are done. and we build out the solution like through automation in a best practices format, and we get you, we think about 75% there. So if I told you tomorrow was your first day of your project and we gave you 75% of your code ready, built, coded, written in a new modern language, I think most projects would like to start at 75%, right? And that's kind of the way we look at things, right? There's going to be some last mile work, there's going to be tweaks. We almost feel like a strong QA team with a couple of developers can close the gap, right, from that 75% to 100. But once again, it's the mindset. We don't want you to bring in 300 coders to recode the app because we already provided 75% of the code. What we're looking at is for folks to come in, maybe a smaller team, right? You don't need 100 developers. Now maybe you're down to 10 or 12. And then you close the gap on the code we already provided, and then you implement the solution. That's speed. That's more efficient. That's fast. And that's the mindset. The mindset has to be, we're forward thinking. We're not going backwards. We're not going to do the old app modernization approach. We have to start thinking differently. That's it. And I know I rambled forever, but we got 2 hours for this call.
No, I think that really helps, Charles. And yeah, I would be happy to get 75% of my code ready before I start working on it. So yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for sharing the slides and the case studies here as well. I know you have a demo.
Yes.
Do you want to show our customers on how they can actually use it? Or
Absolutely. So I'm gonna turn it over to the brain trust, Adi here. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, let me say I couldn't have a better partner on this journey. I think Ian Easton as well is, I think, off stage. Matt Tias Crater, our CTO. We have been they've been building this for years, and they invited me to join the party. So I'm really excited to show you what we have and what we've been doing. But this team has been tremendous. And the brain, I mean, the things that we talk about every day, Kruthi, if I could show you a list of things we learned last week, and we do this every week, we have a whole board of things we learned about AI every week. If I read it to you, it would be one of the most comprehensive newsletters that we could probably produce, because we are constantly in the lab every day, every morning. I go into our Slack channel. I not only learn things, but it's not only just about learning, it's about the creativity, right? This team is super creative. I feel like I'm surrounded by a bunch of Picasso folks because of the way they don't look at this as not just science, it's art too. And I look at Aditya as one of our, Picasso, Michelangelo type of AI person. I know he's smart and all that, but some of the stuff that they come up with is mind blowing. So let's talk about it. Aditya, you're on show. This is your stage. I'm gonna be quiet.
Cool. I can take it from here. Trying to really answer and dive deeper into the question of like, how do we actually modernize, right? It's fairly complex, as you guys can imagine, hundreds of varieties of tech stacks that you can engage with. How do we actually go from there to a new solution, right? So we've thought about it in a couple of ways. Either one, let's just help the teams understand what's going on in plain English, so they don't have to hire COBOL developers, they don't have to hire Java 6 people, they don't have to spend 80%, 60 to 80% of a project trying to figure out what the original tech stack is doing, right? So that's one approach, right? Help them understand. The second approach is help them understand and help them create a new code base that takes the client from 0 to like 60 to 80% of their project being done, right? And so those two thought processes kind of created 3 different modules, right? So the explanation component is really critical. That's what we have CodeMine and CodeMap for, right? CodeMine will essentially go through your code line by line and give you a sense of every single logical step that's happening, right? And we did a sample with the COBOL AWS card demo application, right, which is about 33,000 lines of code. And it was able to get a full comprehensive understanding of what was going on in about 25 minutes and provide an output, right? Similar to that, also to help clients understand, you can also explain things in a diagrammatic fashion, right? Simple diagrams, activity diagrams, UML, sequence, really to help you understand what's going on in the code as well, right? And that's where code map comes in. What structure does the app have? What dependencies does it have? What functionality does it have, right? And so when we ran it on Card Demo, it took about 3 hours. And then for the second kind of phase where clients want to get half or half plus of their coding actually done, we created Card Demo, which will take you from one tech stack to a new tech stack. And then if you provide standards and requirements and extra features that you want to create, it won't just do a lift and shift. It will actually do a lift and shift and then improve the solution with the new tech stack. Make sense so far? If so, I can jump into the demo.
Awesome.
Give me a second just to share. Cool. And let me know when you guys can see.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Perfect. So we created a UI for Modernize on top of the Mechanized platform. Like we mentioned, here you can see you import a project via like zip file or GitHub. You can do code mine and code map to understand what's going on in your code base, or you could do code gen to actually transform it to a new tech stack, right? And before we jump into that, I want to touch on kind of a quick cost calculator. Generally, on average, like tech remediation takes about $11 per line of code, and usually 50 to 70% of the project is spent just understanding the code, right? So for a simple like 33K line code, takes about 2.5 thousand hours and about 300K just to understand what's going on in their code base, right? And this could take generally about a year to a year and a half out of that 3 to 5 year project, right? So let me jump into each module one by one, right? So for live purposes, we've run the processes for a lot of this. So let's take a look at code mine, the business rules extraction, and let me share that. Share the output of what we have there. So entire screen. There we go. Right. So here is a output report for the AWS card demo, right? You can take a look and really get a sense of, hey, per file, what's really going on? So the workflow that we generally recommend is, hey, I don't even know what the code is doing. That's generally where the clients start. Let's start by first analyzing the original code, understanding what files it has, what files are the most critical. I don't know what a particular code set does, so let me find the actual file and then start diving into it. So let me give you a example of some logical workflow that starts, I think, on page 5. So after we process, let's say, transaction files, right? We can trigger the start of an execution, right? And you can see each kind of grouping has an explanation, the application details, and the actual code snippet in that file. So you can really trace along what's going on in your code base. So after you display
Aditya,
start
can
message.
you zoom in a bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Happy to.
Yeah.
So once you do like the simple start of execution, you can open a count file, right? That makes sense. Loop until the end of file. And then standard kind of not end of file stuff, iterate through the next records, display the account records, and then close the file, right? So fairly simple stuff, but you could see the level of depth that it goes into to help you understand languages that you don't get, right? So this can be consumed by anyone from a BA to a technical leader to really get a sense of what's going on and where they want to take it from there to actually improve the tech stack and actually modernize it, right? So let's go into some more critical functionalities, right? So it reads the data from the different transaction files. Keep in mind, this is like a standard banking application with transactions and users and storage of those transactions, updating those transactions, right? So store the data, right? And then here are some validation steps. If the file equals 00, then some intermediary flags are created. And then if that flag is created, perform a process or a procedure, right? Same thing for a different status. And then certain other flags are created, and you can dive in deeper to kind of understand what those flags mean, right? And then kind of a gap if the status is not 0 or 10, right? Then here are some validation steps. Is the application A-OK? Is the file finishing? Yes, the file's done. And then here's some error, right? So really the workflow, as I mentioned, was try to understand what's going on, focus on the logical workflows that really drive the value in your solution, and then leverage that to start designing your requirements and how you want to actually improve the product, right? So generally, like Charles was mentioning, this takes a fairly significant amount of time. It takes at least kind of 6+ months for a lot of the use cases we've seen, because we're dealing with millions of lines of code, right? You can get all that done in 5 hours, and you don't even have to do anything for it, right? So let me move on from here to code map, right? So again, code mine, understand what's going on, code map, understand what's going on as well, but dive into it using diagrams to simplify the speed and operational efficiency of actually understanding what's happening in the solution. So CodeMine will provide you an overall summary, an overall summary for different stakeholders that are relevant to the project, right? So it'll generally be like a business summary, an ARC summary, as well as a dev summary and a set of features, right? So here, depending on the relevant stakeholder, they can read the relevant sections to understand what's going on and how that's relevant to them from the code base, right? So for example, like executive summary, the code base provides critical functionality for core business operations like financial reporting, transaction processing, user management, data integrity, right? That gives you a quick understanding of, hey, what's the goal, right? Then you can dive into overall functionality in a little bit more depth, as well as how can we actually improve the solution? Here are some suggestions. And then for the architecture stakeholders, right, to really understand, hey, where are we at? So we can decide how to move forward, right? Let's understand the goals that were used to actually create this product, the requirements that were used to create this product, the tech stack evaluation, different components, how do the logical flows work, right? So you can see they have like standard report generation, user management, transaction processing. Okay, that makes a lot of sense for a banking application, right? They have standard data modeling and management for a COBOL setup, and they're engaging with fairly good scalability and performance strategy approaches using different databases and CICS for high availability and processing. And they have fairly good security as well with authentication methods, right? And then it also takes into account cost analysis. See, it's engaging with each and every relative component that an architect needs to take into consideration at a very high level, including compliance, interoperability, and how do you approve. And then from a dev perspective, you have the same categories, but in more detail, right?
Aditya,
And then
we have a couple of questions from the audience.
Happy to. I just can't see the screen while I'm sharing.
The first one is, what programming languages can your platform analyze?
Yeah, I'm happy to pull up a slide for that. We actually have this slide. Cool. So currently, these are the kind of sources that we've actually engaged with, right? And the limiting factor is really, hey, does your tech stack have enough documentation on the internet, right? So if you're dealing with a tech stack that's not listed here and it has documentation on the internet, you're good to go. We just need a couple days to a week to load our system to be able to comprehend that tech stack, and we're good. But some examples that we've dealt with are large COBOL systems, large Oracle systems, large .NET systems, taking old Java to new Java, etc.
Awesome. Thanks. That helps. We also have another question. Let me quickly pull that up. Yeah. Does this product tailor solutions to certain compliance guidelines like FedRAMP or HIPAA?
Yeah, so we don't purport to be a compliance shop, right? However, when you're creating a new code base with CodeGen, what you actually have access to is a remediation plan, right? The system will see gaps between the original tech stack and the new tech stack, right? And in that remediation plan, the clients are actually able to edit and say, hey, I have these 10 other standards that I need to adhere to. And then the system is then able to actually tailor solutions to those certain compliance guidelines.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, sorry, I stopped you when you were showing the demo.
You're all good. Go back to sharing my screen and create the infinite zoom for a second. Oh, let me know whenever we're ready.
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. So on top of like talking to the business stakeholders, ARC stakeholders, the dev stakeholders, it'll also do a very detailed feature summary, right? So you know kind of where you need to start from a requirements perspective, right? So we're talking about tech stack deep dives, core functionalities, managing accounts and credit cards, interactions, as well as unique innovations. What is this tech stack doing well? Right? How does the user need to engage with it? What are some scalability considerations? What are some security considerations, data management and utilization as well? Right? So once you have a sense of what's going on at a high level, right, the recommendation is to start designing your end state, right? And you can also take a look at, hey, what are the relevant files that drive value for this problem, right? So once you start exploring kind of the different code bases,
yeah, Aditya,
you can get us.
Are you going to show the arc diagrams or no? I'm just.
We decided not to. Do you want to? We can.
Well, I just wanted to show them some of the diagrams that we create automatically.
Yeah, those diagrams. Yeah, we're going to go through that. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So, for example, the system will go into more detail beyond the overall summary, right? Because you can't take an overall summary and get a really comprehensive dev level understanding of everything, right? Because you need to get a sense of, hey, what are the different logical flows? How do we clean up different data fields and data points and different attributes? How do we store? How do these different components interact with each other? Right, so you can actually go to the relevant file you're trying to look at, right? So we're looking at cocatup.bms, look at the metadata analysis, right? And then get a sense of, oh, hey, how is this file relevant again to the different stakeholders, right? So, hey, this file in particular focuses on generating financial reports and filtering them based off timeframes, right? So you can make timely decisions, performance track, and engage with operational efficiency and responsiveness, right? And so that is really what the original file associated to this README is doing, right? On top of error handling, confirmation prompts, right? So, hey, once you have an understanding of what that file in particular is doing, you can get a sense of different diagrams that explain the flow as well as the manipulations to data points and the storage, security, etc., right? And for the relevant stakeholders, parameters as appropriate, right? So we have the screen definition being defined, transaction name, the date, the account details, and that is informing the screen layout. And both of those are informing like different field attributes, customer information, function keys, and right? So you can get a really deep understanding of what each file is doing, as well as what the entire code base is doing, right? So here, there's also a lot of methods in this file, right? So it engages with communicating to you, hey, how do those methods actually work? What entities do they interact with? And how do they flow, right? So for example, the access account update screen will connect to the screen, load the screen layout, retrieve the account details from the database, persist it to the UI and the user, right? Same thing for update details, right? Update it to the database and go back. And then if you want to submit to save like multiple updates, you trigger a batch job with JCL, right? And you authenticate and you finalize the updates and you return completion status, right? So these go into more details as to what the different macros do, how the layouts are defined, and the different fields that you need to engage with, right? So see here, it's fairly simple to understand how to recreate that file and the features that you actually need to engage with when you're remediating, right? So this one is fairly simple. It goes into a little bit more depth as to more from a dev perspective, what's relevant, what controls what, right? Same for here, right? The CICS map uses Cobalt. The Cobalt accesses the database, the batch processing, as well as the security, right? And goes into a little bit more detail here. Same components. And here are some more methods that file is engaging with, right? So if the user selects an account update, it persists it to the BMS map, which retrieves a screen layout and displays the update. If they enter account details, for example, it'll send input data to the Cobalt, which will query the DB, returns the different account details to the user. And then request to exit, triggers an end of day job for some summaries, processes some batch updates, validates security, and finishes the job. Right? Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Any questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
This might be something that has to do with your like the customers or the clients that you engage in or engage with. So have you had situations where your clients are like skeptical to bring in their source code to your platform? And what is your messaging around that to them?
Charles, I'll let you take that.
Oh, you're in mute, Charles.
You're mute.
Sorry about that. So the interesting point is, and I would think, and I think you mentioned it, you would think they would, right? The interesting thing is that our solution is a PaaS that deploys in their AWS tenancy. So the data and source code never leaves their environment. So we're not a SaaS that exists outside of AWS. I mean, when I say outside of AWS, I meant like on the general internet, where they would have to take the data and stream it outside of their environment into our SaaS. We are a PaaS Amazon solution, so we deploy in their private VPC, and their data never leaves their prem, right? Because we consider the VPC as part of their real on-premise tenancy, right? Because of the security Amazon puts into place. And that's a beautiful part of the story, right? You know, we could say as a startup, yeah, we're SOC 2 compliant, but I'm almost certain Amazon pays a lot of attention to security, and there's a lot of confidence in what you guys have built. So when we tell the client it's in your AWS environment that you own and we don't have access to it, we don't have any pushback on any source code. So
Great.
we're leaning in on Amazon.
Okay, cool.
We also have a question from one of the audience here. Is this build with Mermaid? Aditya, do you want to take it?
Yeah, definitely. So the final step in the kind of agent, just to visualize the different diagrams, is built with Mermaid, right? But the rest of it is multiple LLMs with very advanced security, very advanced validations, injection protection, and like advanced prompt engineering techniques. So kind of the last step, like once the logic is extracted, is like mermaid code extraction, right? But we also played around with like Plotly and Matplotlib to like visualize a lot of this. It's not necessarily like hooked into mermaid permanently.
Okay. I just had a quick question. So, as a customer, you have different solutions like CodeMine, CodeMap, and I think you'll be showing us CodeGen next. So, how would, as a customer, how do I know which solution to go for? Do you have recommendations or guidelines on which would be the most suitable for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Go ahead, unmute.
Okay, thanks. So it really depends on where they are, Kruthi, in their journey, right? So sometimes we'll join customers post um, business rule extraction, right? So they've done that part manually and they want to do a code map, right? Because they want all the visualizations, they want a deeper dive into the code outside of just more of a business analyst purview. Or we may join a client that finished mapping it manually. They spent 2 years doing it and now they're just tired and they're like, can you rerun code gen because we want to accelerate the client outcome, right? Because a lot of times you remember, if you talk about these project timelines, these are 3 to 5 year, potentially 2 to 3 years. There's a client fatigue that sets in these transformation projects. So anybody that's ever been part of a modernization journey understands that usually by the end, the customer is tired and they want it finished and they want you out of there, right? Because you spent 2 years in their environment, maybe three. And so it really depends on where we join the journey. Ultimately, we'd like to be there day one because from day one we can accelerate it and we could get the client, the partner wins, right? So a lot of these projects, as you know, are very strategic in a way where you want to show the client some things right away to gain their confidence and to move forward in the process. The beauty of our solution is you get wins right away, right? We're within hours, we're giving you outputs. Within days, you're getting code map, right? Within months or weeks, you could probably get some code gen, code already produced. So when you look at it from that perspective, this is a long journey. We shorten the journey, we accelerate it, we make it more efficient, we drive down costs. That's the mentality we have. So we want to be there day one, but as long as the client understands that we're building on top of what they foundationally have, so there may be some, our code acceptability might go from 85% to 75%. There's going to be a buffer in there because we're not working off our generated outputs, we're working on manual human outputs, right? So that's some of the thinking. One thing I wanted to mention that Aditya showed you today, that's 100% code. The code told that story. That's that book you were reading just a minute ago, eloquently written, all came from code. So there was no tribal knowledge, there was no interviews, there was no client inputs. The code told the story of who it was, and then we get to build on top of it. So when you think about these legacy applications, which are 30 years old, 40 years old, those people that coded that app don't work there anymore. The people that built this app from the inception don't work there anymore. So how are we getting the information? How do we get a baseline of what we are and who we are today from just the code? That's the beauty of the solution. It removes that. Now, that doesn't mean that tribal knowledge is important. It's very important, right? That's part of closing that 20% gap. A lot of that is tribal knowledge, not just code. But as you can see, what Aditya is going to show you some more stuff, but we take that journey and we change it. And I noticed, Kruthi and Nneoma, when you guys were looking at it, these are things that you probably built in your lifetime manually. These are things that you spent months and months and weeks, whether you were interns or working as a software engineer. These are things that you had to do that were painstaking. And to see it done in minutes kind of probably feels a little bit good, but man, did you waste a lot of your time all of those years doing it the old way? And let me tell you, customers still want to do it the old way. We have to tell them it's time to move the page and move forward. So that's really the disruptive part of it. So anyway, I'm just a time filler for Aditya. So let me turn it back over to him.
Hey, thanks for the break. I'll take it.
Before I hand it off to you, Aditya, for anybody who's joining in now, this is our Howdy Partners show. This is our weekly show that happens every Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. PST. So anybody that's joining in, we have Mechanized AI today, and please drop in your questions in the chat. We'll try to get them answered throughout the show. Yeah, Aditya, over to you.
Cool. Yeah, I'll continue with the code map output to give you guys some more examples, if you can share, Kruthi.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So I will go ahead and give you guys another example. I'm not going to drain this as much, but so here is an example of a batch processing job that COBOL could trigger, right? So this one will call a procedure, wrap it in a batcher, define the data sets, handle output management, handle space allocation, and process daily transactions, update the overall database, create the balances for the bank application, right? And then engage with storing it, ensuring data integrity and security, right? So here you can kind of see how that works and how that engages through the rest of the system from a daily batch job and different interaction kind of workflows here, and how like the batch system engages with COBOL files as well as the DB, right? So you can really understand and drive through every procedure and see how it interacts. And this is another like set of methods that procedure can call. It'll call another JBL program, which will update the master data set, change the transaction balances, defines the data sets, maintains data security, and interacts for transaction processing, and it'll automatically run daily, right? So here again, we're talking about, hey, understand the overall summary of what's going on in your code base, then dive deeper to understand more features per set of code. And then once the features are extracted, design how you kind of want to change them, right, in the standard development workflow, set up your requirements, and then dive deeper as a developer is actually engaging to ensure that, oh, hey, all the validations, all the error handling, all the data processing is actually taken into consideration from the original tech stack, thereby really accelerating your remediation, right? If you don't want to remediate yourself, right, we can engage with CodeGen, right, which, as Charles mentioned, will take you from tech stack A to tech stack B. And let me kind of talk through the inputs real quick. So you define your tech stack, what you're using. If you don't, the system will auto-generate it for you. And then for the output tech stack, define what you want to do on the front end, define what you want to do on the back end, and then define where you want to deploy it, right? And so we've run this before. We have this output here for you. And it's really broken up into the summaries of the original. Wait one sec. I lost sharing all of a sudden. There we go.
Yeah.
Let me know what. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it'll split up your output code into a few things, right? Front end as appropriate, back end is usually appropriate, unit tests, remediation plans, functional tests, as well as summaries of your overall code from CodeMine and CodeMap, right? So let's kind of talk through a couple of workflows if we are modernizing the card demo to newer versions of Java, newer versions of React, right? So let's look at the bill pay example for the React pages, right? We can go to React. We can look at the bill pay. This is fairly standard. It's pulling in the form and it's engaging with success and failure criteria as well as submissions. And then you can look into the Java section to engage and understand the different components that it's leveraging, right? So let's engage with the Java model first for bill pay. Right, it's setting the schema for bill pay. It's setting standard getters and setters, fairly simple, but you'll see a lot of the meat is actually in the controller. right? And here is where you see a lot of kind of the more intensive code engaging with, for example, like overall controlling of the bill pay, setting the service, getting all of the bills, getting them by ID, creating them, right? Updating them and deleting them, as well as processing a bill payment, right? So that is taking the actual logic from the original source code and mapping it to the new tech stack, along with a high level understanding of what the project's actually meant to do, right? So we have another one for bill pay in the service, which goes into a little bit more depth, right? It defines the different repositories for the bills, the accounts, and the transactions, getting all of them, getting them by ID, saving them, deleting them. And then here's the process bill payment that we saw in the other file, right? So fetch the account, deduct the bill amount, create the transaction record, and save the bill payment, right? And so as you can see here, this is a fairly good scaffolding, right, to engage with improving and adding your feature tweaks and your new features, your new requirements on top of this. But if those requirements were actually provided through the code gen run, the system would actually make those improvements, for example, like compliance, like one of the viewers requested, or like, hey, we don't want to allow for deleting bill pay, for example, right? Any tweaks that you need to make, if you can provide them, the system will actually adjust, right? So let me go through some of the test cases, right? So it'll also generate unit tests, right? So the most intensive one was probably service. So let's take a look at service unit tests, right? So we're mocking the different repositories, right? We're engaging with the tests, getting all of them, getting them by ID, edge or sad path for no ID found, saving, deleting, and processing, right? And so our system generally will engage with, per type of use case that it can find, right? For the unit tests, it will engage with 10 happy path, 10 sad path. And then if you want specific test cases engaged with, you can give it that context and it will actually run through all of that and generate test cases for you. So that also applies for functional tests for the overall system, right? So we have some written in Selenium. So let me pull up a happy path, simple happy path for the customer, right? Using Selenium, fill in the relevant name, email, submission, and it's a simple confirm, right? A lot of these are fairly simple functional tests. We generally recommend a lot of our clients to actually provide the different complex test cases in English that they would like us to cover. And then we're able to generate fairly complex functional test cases, whether that be in Cypress or Selenium or what have you, right? Or just API triggers. And then let me go through a sad path as well. Fairly simple, invalid amount, right? So let's give it a weird amount and let's fail the test case. Or let's assert that there was an error, right? And that is pretty much it for my demo of the modernized use case. I can also kind of go through the dashboard, right? So from a CIO perspective, you guys probably want to understand, hey, what kind of projects are we running? What kind of code bases are we engaging with, right? What kind of languages, what kind of file types are they, right? How long did Modernize save relative to a human, right? So it took about 14 hours to run all of this, and versus a human, it would have taken about 161 hours with all these different file types, saving about 300K and about 2.5 thousand man hours, right? And then you can also filter this per project. In this instance, for demo purposes, we have the card demo Cobalt project. And that's it for me. I shall hand it back to the rest, Kruthi, Nneoma, and Charles.
Aditya, I just had a quick question. So how would customers connect their code base to your solution?
Yeah, definitely. So they could like connect via GitLab, GitHub, code commit, or just a zip file.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the code would still remain secure. I think, oh, we covered
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, the deployment of the account itself is in the client's environment, right? So the code never leaves their account,
Yeah, so
aside from like simple metadata.
yeah, so Kruthi, our original platform is FTR and on available marketplace. We're going to
Mhm.
put Code Map, Code Gen, and Code Mine on marketplace, so everyone could just go and just start uploading code and doing all the work, right? So we are making this completely accessible to the public. As part of the solution, remember, it always deploys inside their PPC. So all of that orchestration will be there. We are putting that as priority. We want teams to start using it right off the marketplace.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, did you have? I know you'll be listing this on marketplace. That's, I think, great way. And for customers, how can they reach out to you today? Uh, can they contact you via your website, or how would you?
Yeah, please go to the website. It's, obviously I've been getting messages on LinkedIn this entire time. So we have people really engaged, and I'm excited about the folks coming and watching what we're doing and what we've been working on. But yes, the web page is the fastest way to get in touch with us. We have a team of folks that are waiting to talk more about this. We have our generic, I'm gonna say our platform website at Mechanized.ai. But if you are specifically interested in modernization, you can go to MyModernize.ai, which is our capability around modernization. It's spelled MEI modernize.ai, but it's pronounced MyModernize. So it's kind of interesting on that perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. Did you want to share anything else regarding your product today, or was that the last part that we wanted to share with the audience?
No, I think Aditya wrapped it up pretty well. I hope the audience
Awesome.
got it. Was very technical, but I think the audience we had and we invited were a mixture of leaders and technical leadership and folks that are doing this work every day. We love to partner with everyone. If you're, a GSI, a boutique, we really want to get as much of the marketplace using a new disruptive technology, so they can learn that there's a better, faster way to do the work that's being done for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I wanted to ask who are your typical customers? Who do you in which like sect? Is it enterprise or like small businesses or startups? Like where are your customers situated?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we target enterprise clients predominantly. However, these legacy applications live everywhere, unfortunately. I mean, they're hidden everywhere. So we've spoken to smaller boutique firms that have millions of lines of code of projects, right? They've brought that to us. And the first thing we tell them is, we love to help you because you're probably going to need it. I mean, when you look at these applications, millions of lines of code, these are not big. Millions of lines of code sounds like a big app, but these apps are being built on for 30 years, right? So it started at 10,000, and then they hired another 10 group of developers that got it to 50, and then they hired a whole set of 20 developers that got them to 100,000. So remember, it's not just the age of the code, it's the construction of the code, the languages of the code. It's Frankenstein's monster is what exists in many of these environments. So even though it's small, as I say, a million lines of code is small, the level of effort is significant. And the level of risk is significant. And not only risk, but reputational risk. So if these companies are going in trying to win these deals and they win them, it's easy to sell a deal and harder to deliver it. And so what we want to do is be part of that assistance and acceleration, so that essentially the consulting firm looks better, faster, it's more profitable. That's who we're talking to. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and Aditya, I think you answered it before, but are there any API integrations that are available for customers? Can they?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If they want to engage like more programmatically, like all of those configs, those tools, those modules are available via an API as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think that comes to almost the end of our session. If anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. If not, I'd really like to thank Charles and Aditya for coming here on stage today and showing us the modernized solution. Really appreciate your time and the time you've taken to explain your entire solution. And thank you, Nneoma, for also being here. And thank you, everyone, for joining our show today. Before you leave, I'd also like to quickly ask all of you to complete a survey. We really would appreciate you to take 30 seconds of your time to complete this survey. I'll also be pasting it in the chat. And yeah. So yeah, that's the survey is there. And we have Portal26.ai coming in next week. So everybody please tune in, same time, Wednesday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. PT. We again have another partner who'll be showcasing their security solution through Portal26.ai. So thank you all again for being here and have a good rest of your day. See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.